I have finally finished my second base rankings today. I'm ready to break them all down on today's action packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Matthew on A. You can find me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Matthew_on A. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the bell below to subscribe you to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Also, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you may listen. If you want a little bit more than what we offer in this 30-minute podcast, check us out on Subtext and become a member of the Diamond Club. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So, guys, welcome back. If you're new to the show, I say we a lot because Dom is my counterpart. During this time of the year, we generally only do about one episode together a week. Maybe next week we might get lucky and do a few more together. Just that time of the year where we can kind of divvy it up. And that's pretty much what we're going to go for at this point. So, you'll get a little mixed bag of tricks. Dom's usually at the end of the week. I'm at the beginning of the week. But welcome. Enjoy the show. For my everydayers, welcome back. Like I promised, I was going to get to my rankings slowly but surely. We are rounding me completing it. I'm getting to the deeper positions slowly, where it's like outfield and shortstop. So hopefully I'll be able to finish those in the next week and a half or so. And then we'll be able to drop them out on Subtext. I actually jumped ahead on Dom. He did about top 12 in each position. I have finished both first, second, third, and short already. Need to do my catcher, outfield, and pitchers. So a little bit left to go, but not much to go. It's getting around the end, and man, we're almost in 2025. It's kind of scary. Thanksgiving is next week, and man, one step closer to baseball, which is kind of wild since it really just ended. But let's get into it. Today's episode, we're gonna be talking about second baseman, and my second base rankings essentially. So I'm gonna go 1 to 10. I'm gonna kind of go down the list, and you know, kind of give my opinions why I'm drafting there, what I'm drafting, etc. And we'll go from there essentially. So second base is interesting. It's top heavy in my opinion in terms of like high production, high contribution kind of players. And then you go down a little bit more and it's like, okay, we got more of like your cornerstone guys, like, I'll get into it. And then you got some like risky picks, some future picks, and then some guys that you don't feel too wonderful walking away with. But at the same time, if the talent kind of falls off a cliff once you essentially get to like 12, it's a little bit tough to do, but there's also some upside play after that as well. But we'll cover that, all that and more. So let's get into it. Let's open up with our first guy here, and obviously it's Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts, honestly, I love the that he's now a Swiss Army knife. He can kind of play in a bunch of different positions, which is nice. I mean, generally when I'm drafting Mookie Betts, it is for outfield. But it's nice, like you can kind of get that flexibility, like almost like, okay, say I draft Mookie in the first, and you know, I keep going down. I end up scooping up another outfielder, and then I met with an outfielder that comes to me that has value later in the rounds, like probably around 6 or 7, that it shouldn't be there. Well, then it gives me the option if I haven't picked the second base, which honestly, if you haven't picked, I would say the top 3 guys, you're probably around the 6th pick. We have to make this decision anyway. And if there's that outfielder or you know just not a second baseman you really want to walk away with, then boom, you can kind of switch positions. It gives you flexibility and kind of gives you a little bit more opening to construct your team, which is nice, especially at the top of the draft. There's not many guys that have too many, positional eligibility in the first round. Mookie Betts is definitely, has some value there, and it can really make you be a little bit more flexible going down in the draft, essentially. So I like that about him. Obviously, we all know how good Mookie Betts is. I don't really need to dive too deep into him, but let's put it this way: he's been a first round pick for the longest time. Obviously, he's getting up there in age. He's going to be, 32 this season, and definitely on the latter half of the side doesn't still Uh, doesn't steal as many bases anymore. He hasn't done, over 20 since 2018. He's really just lived it with his career, with his, season high of 16, this year, and then hasn't done that again since like 2019. It's gotten close at like 14, but like, no elite stolen base numbers anymore. Power's there though, hit 39 the year before that 35, but this year 19, but that was also due to the injuries, but the pace was probably more like 25, which you're still not upset with, but you know, you got to look at it like this. You just kind of like when it comes to Mookie, you just got to say, okay, well, he got injured. Obviously, more things were in play than what we than what the stat sheet essentially said. So with Mookie Betts, you kind of just got to say, hey, I think next year he'll be just fine. I don't think the power's gone. You look at the underlying stats, still average exit velocity, 90 miles an hour. I'm going to round up because it's 89.9. Slug was fantastic. X batting average was fantastic. X wOBA was great. The barreling was down, and so was the hard contact. That dropped to 39.5 from, creating hard contact about 48.5% of the time. So that was a big dip, but I think that was on the more of the injury side. Launch angle in 2023 was at 42%. It's still right there. Bat speed was way down, but again, the injury. Then everything else was on point, stellar. So he really hasn't taken a step back, and I'm not going to discount anything on him in those regards. He's still an elite talent. Played at MVP caliber before getting hurt and when he returned. But you know, when you're looking at him in the first round, he might have fallen for me a little bit because I want a higher upside play that's going to be contributing at an elite level in a lot of positions, not somebody who's good across the board. It's all about getting the edge. He's still a first round talent without a doubt, and I love the dude. He's a great talent. So Mookie Betts, number one second baseman, no question. This next guy here, Ozzie Albies of the Atlanta Braves. He's fantastic. You know, he's like my guilty pleasure. I love the kid. He did have a down season, but again, he's another guy that got hurt this year. He only played about 99 games, which led to about 399 at bats, 52 runs, 29 doubles, a triple, 10 bombs, 53 ribs, 8 stolen bases, and batted about 251. So like it's definitely a down season, even the pace, but again, the injury. And we might be chasing 2023 a little bit, but 2023 was so good. It's not like it's out of the realm of possibilities either. He had 33 home runs, even if that comes down to about 27, you're still not mad. 109 ribs and 96 runs. As a team, they were down. The Braves were, and you saw the unproduction from the lack of production from Matt Olson and the company, where nobody really got runs or ribs, and I don't think a very talented team like that is going to stay down for long. So Ozzie Albies is going to be just fine, I think, in those categories. So that's going to bounce back up, and I think that's definitely very attainable. Even if he hits 25 to 27 home runs, still elite. Batting average, if he hits 260, which seems to be like something he's been doing, but his career 270 batting average, if he hits anywhere from 260 to 270, definitely a great season for him. And I think he's ultimately going to be a great pick. He's my number 2 second baseman because there's some steady baseline that you can expect, right? Everything I talked about. The team is fantastic, and you're going to just forget about this year. So the runs and ribbies are going to be there. And I think he can have power, and they can steal some bases too. If he steals you, you know, 13 to 20 stolen bases, which is definitely in the realm of possibilities, you're not going to be upset. The pace even last year, he had 8th or 399 at bats, on pace for at least almost 20. So I'm okay with that. Ozzie Albies is going to be great, and he has way higher capacity to just be consistent return value. That's why I like him. That's why he's my second, um, second baseman essentially. Other than that, there is better upside plays essentially, and things like that. But you want to hit on these picks, especially early in the draft, especially where you're going to have to pay for this next guy and Ozzie Albies, and that's kind of where it's like, okay, who is my best bet to return on value? And we'll talk about this next guy coming up next, but I'll give you a little sneak peek into what's coming up after the break. That's Ketel Marte. Why I'm picking Ozzie Albies over Ketel Marte, things like that, all coming up next. You're going to want to stick around for that. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events an even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you I'll show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. With Game Time Picks, curation makes it easier to save you more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Game Time has a plethora of great features as such as their all-in-one pricing. Toggle through this feature and get the up total cost with no surprise fees at checkout. Views from your seat, so you get a panoramic view that you can move around and check, so you're making sure you're not sitting behind that pole. Lowest prices guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you up to 110% the difference. Game Time's ticket coverage is absolutely phenomenal. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use the code Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. And what time is it? It is game time. Introducing the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast Diamond Club on Subtext, your ultimate fantasy baseball companion. Rely on us this offseason and get all our rankings from, redraft, dynasty, prospects, sleepers, breakouts, busts, values, targets, etc. All these things that we can't offer on this 30-minute podcast because what we get here is pretty much just a culmination of Domini's, either like consensus or just like five off the rip, where like, dude, like our bust list, we break it down per position sometimes, and there's probably about 20 dudes on each of our lists, whereas you're only getting about five apiece from us. Big difference. Can put you over the top and know who to avoid and who to target in each and every draft. So check us out on there. The link's in the description below. But let's get back into it. I mentioned Ketel Marte right before we broke there, and Ketel Marte finally had 2 seasons back to back that you could say, man, you know, I can kind of trust him. Sorry, I had to take a sip. It's a lot of talking, but you know, 2023 had a really good season, 569 at bats, 94 runs, 26 doubles, nine triples, 25 bombs, 82 ribs, 8 stolen bases, and batted 276. Fantastic. Then follows it up this year, taking a step forward. 504 at bats, 93 runs, 23 doubles, 2 triples, 36 bombs, 95 ribs, 7 stolen bases, and batted 292. Now, do I think he's going to repeat this season? No. But would I be really happy with anything that he got with 2023 season and above and more? Absolutely. I think it's 100% obtainable. I think he could do 27 to 30 home runs. I think the ribs and runs stay about the same. Maybe the runs go up a little bit more, depending on if Corbin Carroll really does bounce back. And the batting average will take a risk, have some negative regression. I don't think he'll hit 292. He's a career 280 batting average. And 270, 280 is, I think, a fair expectation of him. So we'll kind of run with that, which still great draft price. But here's the thing, right? He's on a team where I don't see a lot of production being available for him, like in terms of like counting stats, right? You have Corbin Carroll, who really wasn't able to do it as much. The rest of the team has kind of just like been good. But even Christian Walker is now leaving the team in free agency unless they're able to re-sign him. So like the production on the counting stats to be coming down a little bit, and or better yet, he was able to create a whole lot of something from nothing. So if anything, it stays the same, and there's no cap, like no ceiling play like Ozzie Albies, where like you could take that off and not only have a really good floor, but a ceiling that is definitely something that you want to chase. Whereas Ketel Marte, I think you're pretty much drafting him at his ceiling, whereas like the floor isn't too far off from it, which is where I like it. And then it comes with Ketel Marte is essentially just him being hurt. He just has a long injury history, and it's just something that's always been so unfortunate because he's been so talented. And I won't ever deny the talent, but at the same time, it just really sucks to own him in fantasy when you watch him go down. You're like, damn, one of the most talented guys in my lineup are just gone, and that's Ketel Marte in a nutshell. So him and the Arizona Diamondbacks, I just think are going to be, you know, cap what Ketel Marte could do for you, and as long as he can stay healthy. But let's move on. Let's talk about Jordan Westberg, somebody that I think can be in the conversation next year as the second base two, somebody that has higher ceiling than Ozzie Albies, in my opinion. Jordan Westberg had a phenomenal 2024 campaign. I was really high coming into him. I told you to pick him up because he wasn't highly drafted this year, and he was on waivers going into the season. And I told you before the season even started, add this kid now, and what did he do? He went off. In this short stint, because he did end up going down to injury towards the end of the year, 416 at bats, 56 runs, 26 doubles, 5 triples, 18 bombs, 63 ribs, 6 stolen bases, and batted 264. I love him. Like, I am super, super enamored with what he can do. Um, he has the prospect pedigree to truly show up, just be a beast. And, I'll read you off a little bit what he's done in his minor league career, right? So, in the minors in 2023, he had 268 at bats, 57 runs, 15 doubles, 2 triples, 18 bombs, 54 ribs, 6 stolen bases, and batted 295. Kid has power because he's hit 27 home runs and 544 at bats. He also can steal a little bit too. He, chips in about 12 stolen bases. In one season, he had 17. That's nice. And he bats for average. I mean, he's not like super, like, batting average worthy, but like, 265 season, 295 season, 285 season. You know, these are things that you want to see from a guy that's getting called up. He was the number one prospect at one point for a reason. And I think that with a full season under his belt, after, full, sophomore season, where I think he's really adjusted to the big league talent, along with that young team that has a boatload of upside, that I think has the same amount of talent and ceiling as the Atlanta Braves in terms of stats that are going to be available to him, that he should be able to capitalize. They don't shy away from utilizing him all across the lineup, and I hope that he just earns himself something towards the top of the batting order where he can really take in and dig in and be that much more valuable for you week in and week out. I really love Jordan Westberg for this season, and you know I am super high. Dom had him much ranked a little bit lower until he saw mine. He's like, man, I really really slept on him. Took a review. We talked about it offline, and he was like, yeah, I give Westberg a little bit of a bumpy bump because the kid is really good. And, again, that Baltimore lineup is super, super nice. And I can't wait to see what they're going to do this year. Unfortunately, I'm a Yankee fan. They're in our division, but it is what it is. From a fantasy perspective, it makes my mouth water. It's like somebody I'm going to have to target, every single draft because I think he's just going to hit and he's going to be the guy out of all these guys. I think he's going to be drafted a lot lower than where I have him ranked. And he's going to be a guy we're going to want to target every draft because he's going to live up to it. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about Marcus Semien. Semien is somebody that had a down season, like real down season, and is up there in age as well. He's 33 years old, 34 now. Turned 34 in September. Definitely, father time is undefeated, and you can see where like okay, some things are kind of taking a negative regression at this point. 650 at bats, 101 runs, 27 doubles, 2 triples, 23 bombs, 74 ribs, 6 stolen bases, and batted 237. So, like, I mean, honestly, you're really not mad at the counting stats too much. Like, yeah, I wish he had a little bit more ribs and definitely more homers, but like, it's not too far off. I mean, yeah, he had a career high of 45 in 2021, and he hit 33 in 2019. But I would take 29, 26, like, and him be solid at that point. But the runs are nice. The stolen bases, I wish they were a little bit more. Like, if he would have got 15, it definitely would have been a little bit more of a, you know, digestible season where you would have accepted it and would have been like a decent meal. It's not like going to get 7-Eleven sushi or, gas station sushi. Whereas like, it's kind of a little bit more painful, especially the price that we had to pay for him this last season. But I'm definitely not out on Simeon at this point. Like Simeon is still talented and he's never been a guy that was like one of those guys that's like knock your socks off with their power or anything of the sort. He's always just been a really good launch angle guy and a guy that just like was just able to create good contact and get the ball over the fence. Like you look at like 2023, he had a really good season, but only created about hard contact 37% of the time. Really didn't barrel much at 6.5% of the time. Average exit velocity is 88.4. And still had a good season in 2023. 2024, there isn't much of a difference, right? Like the launch angle definitely dipped, but you know everything everything else is kind of similar. And yeah, the average exit velocity dropped a little bit more, but it's not much of a difference. And the biggest thing that kind of scared me is the bat speed really took a dip. There is nothing I can reference in 2023, unfortunately, but it definitely is on the lower end side. But I don't have a history to say, hey, it's dipped. and he's never been a power hitter for me to say, okay, cool. Like I could totally see this reflecting on him. Like I'm scared of like, Goldschmidt, how I was with him and Nolan Arenado going into this year. It's a little bit different with Simeon, and he's never been on, knock your socks off hitter. So you just look at him, you go, okay, I'm going to take the risk, but hopefully he comes at a discount. Otherwise, he might fall into my bust category. TBD. I'm waiting to see what ADP kind of brings to us. We'll see. But coming up next, guys, we got the latter half. Guys, you probably have questions on, and guys, you're probably wondering why haven't I talked about them yet? You'll find out that coming up next. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need in one place to live bets on NFL and all in one place. So when you have a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-plays, and so much more on the same page where you place all your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch with and make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And guys, let's put it out this way: I have to make that help make your $5 count. Right? You got to win that $150. So bet against the Giants. Now we can't bet against Mr. Daniel Jones. He's been benched, but we can still bet against the team. So do that every single week. It's going to be a safe lock, and I promise you, we're probably going to end up with a top 2 pick. Unfortunately, we'll win one more game. They'll knock us out of it, but it is what it is. But FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Let's hit this latter half of the show and get right back into it. Let's talk about Nico Hoerner. Hoerner had a rough start to the season. Really was disappointed with like I would say month of 2024, but he ended up the season pretty decently. Wasn't your typical Nico Hoerner season, but it was still pretty darn good. Let's pull up the first month versus everything. So first month he did about 261, didn't really steal a stolen base, had no home runs, only about you know 18 runs, which was pretty nice. But like the 7 doubles, like if you had him in points leagues, you were pretty happy. Like disregard everything I'm saying, but if you had him in a roto league like a standard 5x5 and you didn't have like doubles and triples counting, you're pretty disappointed. You know, you draft him to have high stolen base numbers. He really didn't do that in the first month. And on top of that, it's not like he was producing anywhere else. 18 runs is nice, but whatever. Next month, he batted 250, was a little bit better. Had 8 runs and 8 ribs and 5 stolen bases, but 2 home runs and only 10 runs at that point. It was taking a dip. And then June was ugly too. 230 batting average, 2 home runs, 6 ribs, 8 stolen bases at least, and 12 runs, whatever. But as the season went on, he got more and more reliable and a lot better. Finished off the season in total with I'll read off the final stat line: 582 at bats, 86 runs, 35 doubles, a triple, 7 bombs, 48 ribs, 31 stolen bases, and batted 273. You're not mad at that stat line, but like for where we had to pay for him this, which I think was in like the 5th round, if I'm not mistaken, you wanted him to repeat the 43 stolen bases, and you would have expected him to get 20 more ribs, and you know that is where really what it is. So I think that he's going to come at a discount this year. Um, Not too much more. Maybe he slips into the 7th, which will be a little bit better of a price, and we can kind of feel a little bit better about drafting him. I really just was not happy with the production, especially for that and the price. That's really all it really is. It bottles down to. So with Nico Hoerner, let's just hope he's a little bit more of a discount, and then we can kind of feel good walking away with him. But other than that, he's just all reliable and he does exactly what he does. He's a specific tool that's good for stolen bases, runs, and you would hope average. So, he's solid at those 3 things. And with second base, there's not a lot of, stalwart is very top heavy, and then it kind of gets into the mixed bag of tricks. But I think over the next couple of years, we might have a little bit deeper position, which is exciting, where it hasn't been at second base for a long time. Let's talk about Jose Altuve. Why haven't I talked about him? Well, there's a couple things when it comes to when it comes to him. For starters, he went into the season, missed a decent chunk of it, and then finally made it back and was killing it at a certain point. but there's some underlying stuff that I really didn't like. Am I thinking of the wrong season? I apologize. I am. This year, I'm all over the place. Sorry, this is what happens. We have two kids. This year he was pretty darn good, even though he wasn't himself. Because there's some things I'm definitely going to highlight that is going to maybe make you upset and maybe make you rethink drafting him. Right? 628 bats, 94 runs, 31 doubles, no triples, 20 bombs, 65 ribs, 22 stolen bases, batted 295. Look, he's always going to hit for batting average. That's just the thing. 22 stolen bases was a nice surprise. The ribs way down. I figured he would have hit a little bit more, but hey, it is what it is. I would have thought we would have sort of like, mid 70s, if not 80s. Power's definitely down. To only get 20 for a guy that's hit, outside of last year, 2023, where, he was hurt. He had 28 that year in 2022, 21, 31, 19, 31. Guy that's been hitting pretty good power last couple years. And now the home run numbers come down. That's disappointing. The runs were at least good, but like you drafted him pretty highly, and he didn't really do too much for you, but didn't kill you either, which is good. But I'm also not willing to spend a high price, which I think he's going to be. In a lot of platforms, I have a feeling he's going to be like the second base, three or four, and that's too rich for my blood with him. Because I'm going to break down the underlying stats, and this is what's really going to turn you away from him. You know, X Woba was at 316. His slug was at 399. His average exit velocity was 86.5 miles an hour. And if you go to 2022, which is the last time, he's never really been an average exit velocity kind of guy. But you just look at it and you just go, I'm not really happy with these numbers, especially at the older age when you're going to be 34 years old. Hard contacts down, launch angles down, bat speed is down. He chased a lot more this year and didn't walk as much this year either, which is also concerning, which means he shows frustration in bat and behind the plate. Now, for me, Jose Altuve is, I feel, a risky pick. Father Time is undefeated. This is the perfect time for a bat to start slowing down. Now, he bats for average. He gets the runs. And if we see five less home runs and the stolen bases kind of stay the same, he'll be worth like an like a number 8 second baseman where I have him ranked right now. But at the same time, there's other upside plays that we're going to be talking about now, like Luis Garcia of the Washington Nationals. And man, like this kid is somebody that I definitely want to focus on, possibly even target next year as well. He's another one that I definitely am intrigued. The team is young. The team is looking like they're going to start mounting to start looking at playoff aspirations, and I'm excited for it. So you look at him and you go, okay, 500 at bats this year, played about 140 games, 58 runs, 25 doubles, a triple, 18 bombs, 70 ribs, 22 stolen bases, and batted 282 on the season, and OPS of 62, solid numbers, like truly solid. Definitely came up clutch when you picked him up off waivers this year. He really did bring home the gold there and was awesome, especially after losing some guys. And you look at a couple of things too, and like you're just like on the underlining, it's like okay, X batting average was actually 278. Um, X Woba was 331. His slug was 452. Average exit velocity sitting at 89.1, so not too bad. Barreling about 8% of the time, creating hard contact about 41.7% of the time. You know, doing things that I think are going to produce his age 25 season to be a little bit better and take that serious step forward. He was so young when he first got and started that you almost forget about the kid. But I think that we're going to start seeing a trend where next year he has a lot of upside, and I think that he can take a step forward. The 18 home runs was definitely nice and a surprise. And let's put it this way. I wouldn't be surprised if he walks away with 22 to 25 home runs next year. The team is getting better with Dylan Cruz and James Wood coming up. Maybe we'll see more runs and ribs. And then with that, like the batting average just stays the same and he gets to 22 stolen bases, he's definitely going to be valuable. He's definitely going to outperform his draft price. So Luis Garcia is one of my favorite targets for this year going into second base and somebody I'm definitely trying to get in my drafts because I think he can be somebody that's going to outperform and really be that difference maker going down the stretch. That's going to put you above your competition. Let's talk about this next guy here, Colt Keith, plays for Detroit Tigers. Another good season. Loved it. Has power. Hits for average. I am a fan. Let's put it that way, right? 516 at bats this year, 54 runs, 15 doubles, 4 triples, 13 bombs, 61 ribs, 7 stolen bases, and bet about 260. Now, you're probably like, man, he only hit about like what, 13 home runs? What are you saying? He has power. Well, let's talk about it because there's a reason why I say he has power. I'm not stupid here. I do this for a living for a reason, right? Well, let's look at his minor league career in 2023. He had 27 home runs in that season through 507 at bats with 88 runs, 38 doubles, 3 triples, and he batted 306. He is a he is somebody that I think can really take a nice sophomore year that step forward. I think it's going to be a very good year. I think we're going to see that power. I think we're going to see, you know, everything I've ever expected from this kid, and he's just going to hit like crazy. I don't think he'll hit the 300 batting average, but 270, 280 is definitely in the realms of possibility. I think Colt, is going to be a difference maker at the second base position. He's not a prototypical second baseman either. He has more of that third baseman profile where power and doesn't really run and doesn't have speed, but man, the kid could do it all, and he also does play third. I think that'll probably be more of his permanent position after this year. But Cole Keith, man, you need to go out there and draft him because I think he's another one that's going to outperform his draft price, and I think he's going to be at a discount. Double check this year. Very excited to draft him. Definitely somebody I'm targeting as well. Cannot wait to see what 2025 brings. But guys, with that being said, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, and do me a favor, share this show with everybody. I understand you want to have the leg up on your competition, but it also helps us stay in business. So check us out. And when you're done checking us out and listening to us every single day, check out our boy Sully over at Locked On MLB, breaking down all the MLB offseason news and free agency. So check him out. With that being said, guys, peace out.